Welcome to a Dank Makers documentary. This time we're going to talk about Africa during the 19th century. Africa is not a topic that a lot of people are interested in, and it isn't commonly taught to students. But it is more than hunger and National Geographic documentaries. It is a region with a complex and very interesting history. Let's hear about it. Talking about government and politics in Africa, it is very difficult to generalize during the first half of the 19th century. But for example, in South Africa, a remarkable period is called the Mfecane, or the Crushing. It began with kingdoms of Tidwa, Nwandwe, and Swaziland. When Shaka from the Zulu people took power over the Tidwa kingdom, he created the Zulu kingdom. It had a very strong and centralized military power that invaded other regions like Swaziland. Years later, he got killed by his brother and he succeeded him. Now, if we talk about the second half of the 19th century, I would describe it with one word: Europe. The European powers started focusing in Africa because it was a less developed territory with a lot of natural resources and people, so it was very attractive. In the Berlin Conference in 1884, the European powers got together without any African representatives, and they established rules for the Europeans to conquer Africa. What came after this is called the Scramble for Africa. 19% of the territories were controlled by foreign powers. For example, Congo became private property of King Leopold II of Belgium, and a bit after that, it became Belgium's territory. During this period, the African resources were carelessly exploited, and the people was induced into slave labor, since the Europeans had the idea that they were a superior race.
At the beginning of the 19th century, most of the African countries had their economy based on agriculture, mining, hunting, gathering, and trading. However, the level of science was very low, so they would use handmade tools to perform most of the jobs, from which the production would be for domestic use only. They also used the barter system of trade, which was the exchange of goods for goods. Unlike pre-colonial economy, the production of goods was used for trade, new machinery was used, and large plantations were encouraged. Of course, this destroyed African economy, not only because Europeans took all their natural resources, but because they also introduced taxation and very low wages.
The Berlin Conference was a major conflict in Africa, since it separated the African states in between European states. Since the European rule only focused on making profit for European states, it didn't really take into account the African states. So it worsened their economy, since they only stripped out the natural resources, and it also affected the society, since they used slaves to remove those resources. And this was a major problem, since many people wanted to rebel against that. Since the use of gunpowder didn't get to Africa as fast as it did to Europe, that was a major effect on the imperialism in Africa, since the Africans didn't have a lot of time to better or improve their weapons, and the Europeans did, making them easier to carry and more powerful. The Africans, because of this, had no way of defending themselves against Europeans, and that made it easier for the Europeans to conquer and to establish their colonies in Africa. And this was a major problem because it also caused a huge gap of technological improvement, since they didn't have a lot of the same technologies and they were a lot behind, and that was one of the major causes of imperialism, since Europeans knew that Africa couldn't defend themselves and it would be easier to control them.
Moving on into society in Africa, most Africans were overall poor. Why? Well, because once they were in Europe's possession, they were either sold for slave trade or being forced into hard, long work hours with few benefits, for example, few payment. The collection of the rubber plant was a very popular work that they would force the slaves to do. Also, let us not forget that if they not collected their daily rubber quotas, they were severely punished. The punishes for not completing the work successfully will go to the extremes of killing them, boiling them, or cutting their hands. In terms of education, most Africans did not count with basic education. Only some Africans had basic education due to classes imparted by missionaries sent in Africa. And although most Africans did not have a proper education, they did have a lot of variety in art. However, they lacked the technology to defend themselves properly from Europe or other enemies. The most popular religion in Africa in the 19th century was Christianity, due to some missionaries settled in Africa spreading the word of God. However, during the 19th century, Islam also started to develop. And also, let us not forget the small minority of people who practice African religions. Now, changing to our time period, today Africans practice mostly Christianity or Islam. However, there's also a minority of Africans that practice traditional African religions. In terms of lifestyle in Africa, there isn't an exact way or concept that can describe African lifestyle. While some Africans die of hunger and live the way we're used to here, there are other Africans that live in huge cities with easy access to technology such as internet access. This severely affects the economy. Why? Well, because while some people are dying of hunger, there are people in the same continent living in great cities with a big fat wallet. Moving on to something a little happier and more fun, African culture is still really rich in art. A lot of Africans enjoy traditional African dances with traditional African masks. Music is also a huge thing in Africa. They use it for ceremonies or traditional rituals. I thought I'll mention this fun tradition in Africa that I found. So a popular thing in Africa is beadwork. Beads have been used to carry uku or love letters throughout the centuries. Basically, each color of a bead means a different letter. It's a tradition for a young girl to bead a bracelet out of different colored beads and give it to a boy. The boy will court her for a while before he asks her the meaning of the bracelet. The girl will give her a code for the colors, so each color means a letter, and the boy will finally read the love letter. So that's it for religion, culture, and society in Africa. Let's go into a quick overall conclusion.
In this video, we can see how in the beginning of the 19th century, most of the countries in Africa had their economy based on agriculture, mining, hunting, gathering, and trading. When the Europeans came to Africa and started colonizing, they changed their economy completely by imposing their own government, creating new boundaries between countries, implementing slave work, and taking all their natural resources. The Berlin Conference that was held in 1884 to 1885 divided Africa among European countries like Germany and Belgium, since Europeans' rules were mostly focused in making money. When the Europeans came to Africa, they forced them to do the hard labors, and if they didn't do it, they killed them and their family members. Some of them worked in the fields and others taking care of their owners, like King Leopold II, who owned the Congo and made the natives do whatever he wanted. In the second half of the 19th century, the Europeans started focusing on Africa because it was a continent full of resources they needed. The Europeans started some wars for some territories. They also led the Africans into bad living conditions. African history is a topic that is not commonly talked about because it is a continent that is known for being treated so roughly by the Europeans. Its history is violent and it is hard to understand. They have been with bad economics throughout their whole history because of their other continents that colonized them. Although they didn't have a good history, they are very rich in culture. They are also really good people and hard workers. They are also known for being very happy people, and they are good at sports.
Thank you for joining us in this 19th century African history. We'll see you in our next video. Bye!